That's a good answer.
Yes.
Now it's getting deeper now.
What do you got? Let's see.
Baby.
Hi. You are filthy. Did you know that? Did you know you're covered in mud and dirt? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
It's hard to take the first step when I don't know the way. Each turn is so uncertain. I learn to walk by faith. But you gave me a promise that you will never leave. You will lead and guide me. Lord, I do believe. Lead me, Lord, I will follow. Lead me, Lord, I will go. You have called me, I will answer. Lead me, Lord, I will go. You have called me, I will answer. Lead me, Lord, I will go.
Welcome to City Exodus.
Welcome back to City Exodus. Welcome back to City Exodus. All right, we wanted to give you guys an update and let you know what we've been doing. And the first thing that we wanted to share with you is that we finally got our our solar panels installed. So for the past 6-7 months, we have been getting power from our batteries, but the batteries were only being charged by our generator. So as you see here, we have 12 new panels that now power or charge our batteries. And let me show you what we've been doing for the past 7 months and show you what that looked like. Okay, so this is our generator, a little shed that a friend of ours built and gave to us. This is a generator. It's a 9,000 starting watt and 7,500 running watt generator. We bought it at Costco a couple years ago when we first moved out of San Diego. It's held up the past 7 months that we've been using it non-stop pretty much every day. Like I said, this takes gas and also takes propane, but we use it mainly, we use the gas function mainly. So that's what we were doing, and that generator powers our, let me show you, might as well give you guys a little tour. So here you go. So here is our setup here. And you see here are 2 of our batteries. Sorry if the lighting's not good, but these are 2 lithium phosphate batteries, and they are 48 volts each. And basically our charge controller, our inverter, and our panel. So yeah, this is it. This is what the generator charged these batteries down here. And there you go. I think the solar's kicking in. So yeah, that is what our setup looked like. And so we had this already set up, and like I said, the generator was powering it. And so we lived for 7 months. One thing I wanted to mention about these batteries here, these are the Simplify lithium phosphate batteries. And the special thing about this is originally when we wanted to go solar, we were going to go with the lead acid batteries. And so with a 48 volt system, we would have 8 6 volt batteries. And so with that, I decided, I think each battery weighed about 150 pounds, and I remember doing some research and homework on it that you had to refill it with distilled water every now and then you'd have a risk of corrosion when you maintain it from spilling water on them, and you can't go lower than 40% of the charge on the battery just to get at least a 7 to 10, maybe even 10-year max battery life out of it. And so when I found out about these lithium phosphate, the catch was I would probably spend more because they're lithium phosphate. I guess, you know, they're more expensive. You're paying double than the lead acid, but these two batteries are equivalent to the 8 lead acid batteries. The good thing is they're maintenance free. You don't need to add distilled water to them, and you could use them completely 100% of the charge. And that's pretty much what sold me. I want to do less. I don't want to have to watch these and monitor them. And if you want to add on, you could add on at any time. It doesn't affect the system. It doesn't affect the batteries. In 2 years, if I decided to get something that's going to take up a lot of electricity, then I'll just add another one. I'd buy another one. And I mean, if you have the initial money to buy these batteries, they last for 30 years. So, I mean, 30 years, if you do the math, compared to 10 years with lead acid, it seemed like a no-brainer. But at the same time, if you have the money up front, if you have that much money to use, then I would definitely recommend lithium phosphate batteries, because they've been doing great for us. And yeah, so that's what our system looks like. So hopefully that helped. We were also blessed to host the End Time Preparation Camp Meeting 2020, put on by Brother Jim Buller, Preparing to Stand Ministries, and his team. It was such a blessing and an awesome experience to be able to have them here and to present how we could physically and spiritually be ready and have the faith for these end times. We were able to wake up in the morning and have our worship and close out in the evenings in front of a campfire, and just being out here in the wilderness and in the country with the fresh air, and to be able to fellowship with our brethren and many like-minded people was just an awesome experience. And it made me realize a lot of different things. It made me realize just how important our skills for fleeing into the mountains and those desolate, solitary places is being prepared by us living in the country. It's like the skills of working with your hands and thinking of solutions creatively, woodworking, agriculture. And what I mean by that is, for example, when we went on a hike, we were looking at ways to find food, ways to find water, different survival skills. And when you think about it, when you're looking for edible plants, or you're carving wood to make a digging stick or a peg for a shelter, and you're doing these things, it reminds me of the preparation we're making for that time. So it's almost like that step. The first step is moving out of the city into the country, getting used to the hardships and sacrificing a few things, learning skill sets in agriculture, in woodworking, in electrical, and whatever it may be. But then that kind of prepares you, because you're starting to do work, and you're starting to work physically with your hands, and then leaning on God more importantly. And then when you go out in the wilderness, it's a whole new level where you're looking for things to make with your hands, and the same thing. It gets even harder. And I know Brother Jim mentioned this in one of the in the trailer for the camp meeting, is that he mentioned Ellen White's vision of us gradually going down that narrow path and removing things until eventually we pretty much have nothing left to carry, and nothing else that we're bringing with us. And it's the same way. So this was a great reminder of the work that I need to do myself here, and how much preparation I need more of, both spiritually and physically, as I'm in the country. I truly believe that having this camp meeting was purposed by God. You know, it was in about mid-January, towards the end of January, where Brother Jim and I were getting together on the phone and trying to plan out when we were going to have this. And we knew that it was crunch time, because by the end of March, we needed to be in the Philippines for our mission trip. And as I prayed, and the suggestion from Brother Jim was to have it February 27th through March 1st, I kind of cringed because I was thinking, oh, this, preparing for this, I still got to prepare the property to have people come over and still, work on my presentations for the Philippines. It was kind of a crunch, but I knew that God was convicting us that we needed to do this. And again, it's no coincidence that the theme and the reoccurring memory verse, or I would say the verse or the theme or the song of this camp meeting was from Proverbs 22 verse 3. Wise people foresee trouble coming and avoid it, but foolish people keep going and suffer. It's no coincidence that all of these things happening all over the world are happening along with all the panic and fear. The times that we're in just in the last months, not even in the last year, just in the last months, we've had so many disastrous things. We've had the tornado in Nashville, earthquakes in Utah, locusts in Africa, the Ebola virus in the Congo, and yes, of course, the coronavirus. And seeing how cities are being locked down, food and necessities and essential things are scarce, and some people are just panicking and beating each other up for toilet paper. Travel is being restricted. There's a travel ban. People can't fly to certain places. And even churches are being shut down. The Spirit of God is gradually but surely being withdrawn from the earth. Plagues and judgments are already falling upon the despisers of the grace of God. The calamities by land and sea, the unsettled state of society, the alarms of war are portentous. They forecast approaching events of the greatest magnitude. The agencies of evil are combining their forces and consolidating. They are strengthening for the last great crisis. Great changes are soon to take place in our world, and the final movements will be rapid ones. And just a quick note, friends. Did you realize that there are headlines that state that emissions are down since cities have been locked down for the coronavirus? We see all over the world, especially here where it hits home, that graduations, parties, and different get-togethers are being canceled. Sporting events, I believe NBA, the basketball league, is being canceled. Soccer matches, you name it. All the big events are being shut down. And what is the result of all of this? Lower emissions. The climate is actually better. What is this setting up, friends? What is this setting up for the climate movement and the supporters of the Laudato Si? That's right, a day of rest.
Curiosamente, hacía mucho tiempo que el planeta no estaba tan limpio. ¿Puede que sea todo esto un ajuste de cuentas de la naturaleza con nosotros?
Hay un dicho que seguramente vos lo conocés. Dios perdona siempre. Nosotros perdonamos de vez en cuando. La naturaleza no perdona nunca. Los incendios, las inundaciones, los terremotos. O sea, la naturaleza está pataleando para que nos hagamos cargo del cuidado de la naturaleza.
This is just one angle. This is just one perspective. This is just one major thing that's setting up the National Sunday Law. There are many other things that are setting up, including what's happening around us now. So as you know, we were supposed to be going to the Philippines in April, and we're going to be leaving in the end of March, and we were preparing we have been preparing for the camp meeting and for this mission trip, our solar, and our other projects at home. But during this time, during these past couple of months, at the same time, we were feeling the conviction of preparing for the great crisis and for the time of trouble. Because this is what we came out here for, is also to prepare provisions, to get the medical missionary work done, our outpost, And for those of you that know what I'm referring to when I say preparing our ark, this is referring to the other episodes for when the National Sunday Law comes, that we would have a place prepared and provisions prepared for those people, refugees who would be fleeing from the cities last minute. So we would have our gardens prepared and just have provisions for those who would be coming. Well, these had to be put on hold. So much time was consumed for these projects here and for the Philippines trip, and so we weren't planning to start on gardening and getting things ready to that degree until May, which is when we would have come back from our Philippines trip. But this coronavirus has been a faith check, a gut check, a readiness check. It's definitely a prelude to how life would be like during the no buy no sell or during the Sunday law. And it's obvious that the country is where we need to be. And you know, it holds true, because as we go to our nearest large city, the shelves were empty when all of this kind of started happening here. And the bigger cities, I could see the reports from family and from friends and social media that shelves were getting empty. People were fighting over certain items and essentials that they were needing, and people were in a panic. But out here, where we live in a smaller town, our shelves were stocked, and all the people seemed pretty calm. We hadn't had a case out here for a long time, up until the last minute. And not until now, we see a lot later that people from out of state and in the bigger cities are coming to our smaller stores and taking a lot of our supplies, according to a lot of the employees here at these small shops. So going back on the status on the Philippines mission trip, I know a lot of you have been concerned. We really appreciate your prayers. And so I wanted to give you an update. You know, when we first had this proposed to us to go to the Philippines and present the health message and the gospel message and do medical missionary work out there, we were excited, but at the same time we wanted the will of God to be done, because we knew that we had to prepare for a lot of things out here in the country. And so it was God's hand that opened the door to us, and by allowing others to help us and donate to us. So we just want to first of all just say thank you for all those who responded to our appeal last episode and providing the donations to be able to go on this Philippines trip. And there were so many things that we knew that we had to go because God was telling us. The fact that we were able to raise the money for me, Kale, and Kim to go was the definite sign that we had prayed for, that we didn't expect, but we're so happy that many of you were impressed to give us donations for us to go. And so when we had accepted that, opportunities started coming in. We were also asked to speak at a maximum prison in the capital city of Manila in the Philippines. We were also asked to speak at a church just outside of that maximum prison to do the health message talks. That Kim was actually going to do these talks and some different natural simple remedies demonstrations. And so opportunities were opening up. We also spoke to the director of health there, and there was a camp meeting that was scheduled, a youth camp meeting that was scheduled, that someone had canceled all them last minute and they needed a speaker. They were asking me to do maybe at least do one or two talks there during the week. But we had a brother who had been helping us. He's part of our family out here, Brother Brian, and he has an amazing story. And I'm going to wait for a future episode for him to tell you his testimony on his experiences here and the whole trip to the Philippines, how that came about. But he was willing to speak, and when I told the director that he would be able to speak, he burst out in tears and he was just praising God. That he was able to find someone. And so we knew that the Philippines trip was going to be a blessing, and that God had anointed it and ordained it. So we had our hearts set to go because God wanted us there. Now, because of recent news of the lockdown in the Philippines and lockdown in the lockdowns that were happening all over the world, people were concerned, thinking that we shouldn't go. And also because of our health, the coronavirus, many people were telling us not to bring the kids there, not to bring ourselves there. We might be quarantined and different things. And despite being worried, we gave it to God and we asked him, Lord, you Your hands open the door to this opportunity, and it must be your hands that close the door. And so, though some of you called us and we said, no, we're still going, even if it seemed really, really close to the edge, we finally got word that Manila, the capital, had locked down all traveling by bus, sea, and air, and our flights were finally canceled at the last minute. So at the time, it really felt like we were being Abrahamed. That's a term I'm using because it's like we were seeing just how far we would obey and be loyal to God and show how obedient we'd be before He decided to pull the plug. So we definitely did not want to cancel it on our own feeling, but only by the blessing of God. Friends, it's time that we heed God's instructions and really ask Him and wait for His leading, especially in a crucial time like this. But more importantly, when we get that conviction, that answer, that we go, we do. With everything going on in the world, our family Bible studies have been on obedience. In our studies, we've been comparing Saul and Jonathan. One seeks counsel from God, and the other does not. So we see in Jonathan back when they were being attacked by the Philistines, and they were battling the Philistines, Jonathan sought for God's counsel. Come, let us go over unto the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for there is no restraint to the Lord to save by many or by few. These two men gave evidence that they were moving under the influence and command of a more than human general. To outward appearance, their venture was rash and contrary to all military rules. But the action of Jonathan was not done in human rashness. He depended not on what he and his armor-bearer themselves could do. He was the instrument that God used in behalf of His people Israel. They made their plans and rested their cause in the hands of God. If the armies of the Philistines challenged them, they would advance. If they said, come, they would go forward. This was their sign, and the angels of God prospered them. They went forward, saying, it may be that the Lord will work for us. And we could see how this is compared to Saul, whom rejected God's orders at Gilgal. In detaining Samuel, it was the purpose of God that the heart of Saul should be revealed, that others might know what he would do in an emergency. It was a trying position in which to be placed. But Saul did not obey orders. He felt that it would make no difference who approached God or in what way. And, full of energy and self-complacency, he put himself forward into the sacred office. Saul did not bear the test. He showed just what he would do under the pressure of circumstances. The Lord saw that if Saul pursued such a course in an emergency, the people would follow his example, and thus no distinction would be made between the sacred and the common. By his example, he would leave it open for the men of war to assume the priesthood on any occasion or in any emergency. After this severe rebuke, Samuel left Saul to pursue his own way and follow his own impulses. Saul found that the work left for him to do, he had left undone. As he looked at the immense armies of the Philistines, he felt that he must trust to his own skill and aptitude for success. And again, friends, you see Saul, when confronted by Goliath, what did he do? Did he ask for God? Did he prepare and pray with his armies? Did they turn to God? Or did he look to his soldiers and ask who would be brave enough to fight Goliath and get the reward? Saul is a great example of seeking no counsel and asking to be led by God and asking what is God's will. Whereas you see Jonathan asked for God's help and gave God his plans and waited for his answer. See, friends, obedience brings blessing and disobedience brings curse. Today we are seeing decisions made to obey or do it our own way. We're getting a small inkling and glimpse of what it will be like in the very last days. What if this is it? How prepared are we right now? Water, food, and all the essential things we need. Have we raised our own provisions? The medical missionary work, which is the work that will be done to the end, is what our prophet says. How prepared are we to do this work? Are we growing our own herbs? Will we have the supplies needed to carry on the medical missionary work without being able to buy or sell? Today we see the church is closed, but medical facilities are open and busy. This is a faith check, friends. What has God been instructing His people? The only counsel we've ever been given or we've received as far as how to prepare physically for the very last days, in all of Scripture, in spirit of prophecy, in all of God's writings, the only counsel we've been given to prepare physically is to move to the country and all that it entails. Friends, the time is here where we need to demonstrate our faith and our obedience. You know, someone said to me when all this started happening, all these lockdowns, they said to me, God's people aren't ready. We're not ready. We have to put our outposts, our hygienic restaurants, we have to plant our provisions. We still have all these things. God's people aren't ready. We should have some more time. You know what the scariest part is, friends? Is that God's people are ready. They do have their outposts. They do have their provisions ready. They do have their hygienic restaurants. But what if we're not part of God's people? It's time, friends, to truly seek God and not just pray, but also act on His answers. In the midst of the global panic, we have true peace because we have the Prince of Peace. We know what we need to do, and we have our God who answers prayers to lead us to be in His refuge. God is giving us an opportunity now not only to ready ourselves, but to ready others. And in that process to lose self and surrender all to His will. Our characters are being prepared more so now more than ever. Listen, there's an economic recession. It's harder to buy food and supplies and essential things. People are stockpiling on guns and ammo. You know what is the most essential thing right now? The most important people right now are the medical people. What does that tell us about the counsel we've been given? Is this an inkling? Country living, medical missionary work, those are the things that are going to be essential based on what we're seeing today. These are definitely rumblings of the Roman army surrounding the walls of Jerusalem. And you can see that it is so apparent that we live in the country more than in the cities. In any catastrophe, disaster, grid shutdown, there's never a scenario where being in the country is worse than being in the city. There is no coincidence with God that the timing of all of this is happening. No coincidence that we've been feeling convicted to start planting our provisions, to start planting our herbs for our natural remedies, and all the things we need for the medical missionary work. Also to be continuing to prepare our ark, our outposts, and truly readying ourselves to carry on the right arm of the gospel. How many people will be able to be pointed to our balm of Gilead? During this time when people are getting sick and people are panicking, how many people will be led to Him, to our Savior, all the way down to the end as we know the work that needs to be done, down to the end. Now, have you been convicted or impressed? What has God been encouraging you to do? What has He been showing you? Seek Him and His counsel and surrender your plans and your will and your way to our Savior. And just as important, our King. I encourage you, brethren, to heed the counsel and truly get ready, and get ready others. Have faith and obedience over fear. We're almost home, friends. I hope you've been encouraged. Now be blessed and be a blessing.
Be blessed and be a blessing. Be blessed and be a blessing. For there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey.